are some weeks when themes emerge from dates in the calendar, from saints' days or anniversaries. And there are other weeks when life itself offers the theme, unexpected, insistent and deeply felt. Welcome to Wednesday Wandering with me, Cate Field, wondering about stuff, not just wandering off. This week I am mourning the loss of our beloved cat, Amber. She was a small ginger cat with a bold, adventurous heart, and she'd been with us for 18 years, since she was a tiny kitten, and the house feels emptier without her. The quiet corners, sunny patches, all marked by her absence. So today, our Wednesday Wandering carries both grief and gratitude. We're going to reflect on mothers and mystics, journeys of love and endurance, and the companionship of cats. And our guides today will be St Monica, the persistent mother of Augustine who prayed her way through difficulty, and we'll look at Isabel Allende, the Chilean storyteller whose novels weave family, history and resilience. And we'll look at Gertrude Bell, the explorer and mapmaker who traced outer deserts and inner landscapes. And although it's not her feast day, St Gertrude of Helfta is a mystic often pictured with a ginger cat at her side. And together they will help us ask, how do we live faithfully through loss and love, through journeys both inward and outwards, with human companions and feline companions along the way? So let's start with St Monica, the mother of endurance. She was born in North Africa in 331 AD and is remembered above all as the mother of Augustine. Her life was far from easy. She endured difficult marriage, the scorn of her mother-in-law, and the grief of watching her son wander away from the faith that she held so dearly. But Monica was patient and she persisted. Through prayers and tears and years of waiting, she became the silent architecture of Augustine's eventual conversion. In his Confessions, Augustine reflects on his mother's longing. For there was one thing for which I desired to linger for a little while in this life, that I might see you, Catholic Christian, before I died. God granted her desire more abundantly than she could ever have hoped for she lived to see him not only embrace the faith, but give his life in service of it. Monica's legacy is that of endurance, not triumphal or loud, but steady and faithful and maternal. A life shaped by devotion and quiet strength. So our little reflection is, perhaps you've waited for someone you love to change, to heal, to find their own way. And Monica reminds us that persistence, gentle, prayerful, steady, can itself be a very powerful form of love. Let's move to Isabel Allende, the storyteller of family and memory. From North Africa, we cross centuries and continents to Chile and the voice of Isabel Allende. Born in 1942, she's written novels and memoirs that carry both intimacy of family and the sweep of history. Her stories, like The House of the Spirits, are full of women whose lives are marked by resilience. They're matriarchs who hold families together, daughters who inherit both grief and strength, and households where joy and loss sit side by side. Allende herself has known deep loss. The death of her daughter Paula inspired a memoir that is much a love letter as it is an elegy. Her gift is to weave memory with imagination through the lens of magical realism. In her novels, the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary blur. Spirits converse with the living, dreams enter daylight, and the past lingers palpably in the present. And this style allows her to explore grief and resilience not only at the level of fact, but of myth and mystery. And it's a way of saying that loss is never simple, that memory itself is enchanted, and that love continues to thread through life, even after death. She once wrote, "We all have an unsuspected reserve of strength inside that emerges when life puts us to the test." And like Monica, Allende's women endure, but they endure with imagination, using story to make sense of what has been lost and what might still be found. Let's move to Gertrude Bell, cartographer of outer and inner worlds. Gertrude Bell was born in 1868 in England. She was an explorer, an archaeologist, a mountaineer, a political figure. Think about when she was living. She travelled widely in the Middle East, mapping landscapes and negotiating with leaders, leaving a legacy that was as significant as it was controversial. She was deeply involved in the formation of modern Iraq, helping to draw its borders after the First World War. And those lines, however, did not always reflect the realities of tribal, ethnic and religious communities. And they've been criticised for sowing tensions that would echo long after her death. But beyond politics, what fascinates me is how her outer journeys reflected an inner restlessness. She was always seeking across the deserts, up the mountains, through the ancient ruins. A woman in a man's world, carving out a path that was both admired and resisted. Her letters are full of vivid descriptions, the sweep of sand dunes, the curve of a river, the endless horizon. And in them you sense that her maps were not just territory, but of longing, of identity, of belonging. We may not traverse deserts, but we each know those inner landscapes, those places where we search for orientation, for home, and for meaning. St Gertrude of Helfta, mystic and companion of cats. So I know her saint's day is not close by, but I feel close to her this week. She lived in the 13th century in Germany, and she is remembered for her mystical visions of Christ's love, and her writings are full of ardour and tenderness, describing the soul's longing for God with a poet's intensity. And while there is no historical record that Gertrude ever kept a cat, or even wrote about one, artists over the centuries have often pictured her with a cat at her side. And this artistic tradition, sort of gentle and domestic, almost whimsical, has given her the title of patron saint of cats in popular devotion. And although it was never officially granted by the church, it doesn't matter. For me, the cat is often shown as Ginger, and this feels to me like it's just wonderful. Especially for this week, as I mourn my Amber, my small ginger companion of 18 years. And the image of Gertrude with a ginger cat offers a quiet comfort. It reminds me that even if the association rose later and perhaps misinterpretation, the symbolism still speaks. Cats have a way of weaving themselves into our lives, watching, listening, curling in our laps, and their presence, however ordinary, carries sanctity. So when I picture Gertrude, mystic of Helfta, I also picture her with Amber, reminding me that our love for the smallest creatures is seen and honoured. Cats have a way of loving that feels at once unconditional and elusive. They don't demand, they don't flatter, but they stay close in their own quiet rhythm, watching, waiting. Sorry. Offering companionship. Sorry. Oh, her cold body, her steady gaze, and the gentle weight of her presence. And in that sense, Cate's companionship can be a spiritual practice, teaching us about stillness, attentiveness, and the gift of presence without words. And perhaps that's why the later tradition of placing a cat beside Gertrude feels so apt. Her mysticism was about a deep interior attentiveness, a listening for God's silence. A cat's companionship is the same, a reminder that love can be steady, wordless, and faithful. And their absence is indeed worth mourning, because in their presence, they teach us how to love with patience, how to rest in companionship, and how to honour the sacred in the smallest of creatures. Monica shows us the power of persistent love. Allende teaches us the resilience of story in the face of loss. Bell reminds us that journeys can be both outward and inward. And Gertrude, the mystic with her ginger cat, assures us that even the tenderest companions belong in the circle of love and memory. Together, they suggest that motherhood, story, exploration, and the presence of animals all can be sacred ground. This week, my own dwelling feels emptier. No poor steps in the kitchen, no beautiful eyes watching me work, no small presence curled beside me at night time. But here in the emptiness, there is also memory. 18 years of companionship, of shared mornings and evenings, of her curled up with Monty, who is wandering around the house now, a little bit lost. A life together, remembered. So I wonder, what are the companions, human or animal, living or remembered, who have shaped the journey of your life? Who has walked with you and sat beside you and given you strength? I have a few creative invitations that you might like. So inspired by Monica, perhaps you'd like to write a short prayer or reflection for someone you are waiting for, loving from a distance. Inspired by Allende, you could write a family story or a memory, or one that weaves joy and sorrow together. Inspired by Bell, you could sketch a map of your own inner landscape, the hills, the deserts, places where you've travelled. And inspired by Gertrude, you could create a small drawing, a poem, or piece of needlework that honours an animal who has walked beside you. If you'd like to share, you can join the conversation in the Facebook group Friday Art and Doodle Club, or tag me on Instagram at Cate Field. I would love to hear from you. Next week, we'll be moving towards a new theme. Haven't quite got it all sorted out yet, but I'll be circling back to what it means to live creatively, tenderly, and fully. Until then, may you find comfort in your companions, strength in your stories, and blessing in the love that lingers. Bye-bye.